Hello again. In this last little video, I'd like to talk about two further points of Jungian psychology and how it related to myself on a little surgical adventure I had in Tanzania some years ago. The first point is synchronicity. I'm sure you've heard of this term, and it's about an acausal connection between things. Things do not happen because something else has happened. I think this is commonly accepted now, but it was Jung, together with Wolfgang Pauli, who developed these ideas 30 or 40 years ago. At the time, Wolfgang Pauli won the Nobel Prize for his work on quantum physics. So I want to illustrate how a synchronistic event, and I've already talked about one in relation to the hunter, but another one happened in this hospital in Tanzania. And then I want to make another point about mythology. It's a very interesting thing that Jung did. He identified that the myths and legends and fairy tales of every culture are basically the same, and they're stories about the way the human psyche is developing. Examples would be Hansel and Gretel going into the forest and meeting the wicked witch. This is about meeting the negative mother, who, if you do not deal with her appropriately, she can eat you up psychologically. And another one I'd draw attention to, because it's relevant subsequently, is the stories of the Knights of the Round Table and King Arthur. These are legends and fairy tales. They didn't really happen, but they are symbolic of the idea of what I've been talking about, like personal development. You know, letting go of the ego and being in the service of the self. The knights represent the ego in the service of the self. And so I want to make a little point about that at the end of the video. So a few years ago, I went to work in a hospital in Tanzania called Makiungu. And I want to describe this little adventure in relation to the points I've made. On the first day there, I helped the surgeon who was leaving to operate on a little 3-month-old boy called Zohan for a cyst on his bowel. But on the second morning, I'll come back to that. On the second morning, when I arrived on the ward, I was confronted with a man who had 65% either full thickness or partial thickness burns. And I was kind of overwhelmed by it. I know to give lots of fluids, and we were preparing to put up a CVP line. He had fluids going at the time. I just didn't know how to debride exactly. I'd never really done it before on such a huge scale. And I was really wondering what I can do. Transfer to another hospital was not possible. And 1 hour later, just behind the hospital, a small plane arrived, and in it was a doctor from Kenya, and he was a plastic surgeon. I couldn't believe it. So for 3 days, Dr. Odura and myself worked with this man, but he not unexpectedly died. The other thing was that child I mentioned wasn't doing well, and I have some pediatric experience, and I was getting a bit agitated about it as the days went by, and then I saw that he really wasn't good at all. And the surgeon who was on leave came in to reoperate on him. And the three of us, the plastic surgeon, myself, and the Dr. Chiamwe, operated on him, and he had a leak in his large bowel, and this was repaired, and Zohan got better and left the hospital about 10 days later. Subsequently, I learned that it's really not thought to be advisable to reoperate on people if the first operation doesn't work. Firstly, because with complications in this kind of scenario, the chances of repairing the situation are slim enough, and a lot of resources are used up looking after cases with not a good prognosis. And often we just don't have they don't have the materials to manage this kind of situation. But in this case, we were lucky. And when I got back to Ireland, I thought about this and thought that this little boy was meant to survive and that I had been part of his surviving. And I felt sort of part of something bigger than myself. This wasn't ego. It was a sense of being connected to something bigger than yourself. What Jung might call a minor numinous experience. And later then I thought that, you know, every single child in that hospital, and there was a big maternity unit, and they did cesarean sections every day, and there was no other help around in that area. These women were literally saving lives every single day. And they make a huge contribution, and sometimes we forget about them. And so, to finish off, a last piece of synchronicity. Also, when I was back in Ireland, I was playing a little video of a celebration of one of the nuns' birthdays. She was over 80. You'll see it in a minute. And as I was playing it, they were singing a Swahili song. And my partner, Eleanor, who is a singer, she thought she recognized it. And then she listened a bit more and said she did recognize it. And it was a song that Patrick Bergin, the actor, had translated and asked her to record with him some 7 or 8 years previously. So I'm going to play that for you now. And also I'd like to say that I'd like to acknowledge the medical missionaries of Mary and so many organizations like them. I think they're leaders in healthcare. And Médecins Sans Frontières, the bravery of these people just is phenomenal. And when you see the last scene in this video, as a nun, she raises her hand, celebrating her birthday when she's over 80, but she could well be celebrating a life spent as a knight in the service of the self, in the service of medicine.
There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. That's when I need you, my angel.
My angel, oh how I love you, my angel. But I don't have wings, and I can't fly away with you, nor have I money to buy you things, but still I love you, my angel.
There's nowhere